So now that that boxing card is over, we can finally say it. Boxing tried their best today to compete with MMA, and they failed miserably. They had a card on Joshua versus Wallin, co-main event Wilder versus Parker, Bivol on the card versus Arthur, not Bertabiev, Lyndon Arthur, and then you also had Daniel Dubois versus Jarrell Miller on the card as well. So they had some really big fights on this card, and they tried their very best to be the UFC. Failed miserably. Boxing, I'm telling you, it ain't got long left. They better hope Jake Paul sticks around. Boxing has not got long left. Don't get me wrong. There are certain boxers that put it on every time and have great performances. There are other boxers who make the sport a lot better than other boxers do. You know, they hype it up way more. They bring more personality into it. And even if the product isn't as good, the hype and the build-up is also there. But the card that I just watched, Wilder loses to Joseph Parker. 12 rounds of Wilder not really doing anything and Joseph Parker beating up on him for 12 rounds. Maybe Wilder got a round here and there that was a swing round. And you know what was the terrifying bit about that as well? I don't know why I pronounced terrifying with a TH. The terrifying thing about that was, at the end of that fight between Parker and Wilder, I literally thought to myself, well, you never know about the judges. I shouldn't even have to think that. But in that fight, I genuinely was still saying, they might try and pull a draw and then have a rematch and try and fix it that way. But no. Parker beats Wilder. Not a fun fight to watch. There were moments where Parker would land some big shots, and there were moments where Wilder would land some decent shots as well. But over 12 rounds, 12 3-minute rounds, like 5-minute UFC rounds does seem a little bit crazy, but 12 3-minute rounds, there should be more action being had. There should be more finishing. But what ends up happening is, in a 12-round fight, the first 3 rounds just get absolutely looked over. Like the first 3 rounds, I know in other cases it's different, but in these fights that took place today, the first few rounds are just like, right, let's get into the last 9 of this 12 round that we're about to go to. Bivol had a good performance, put it on Lyndon Arthur, beat him up, but it still wasn't like, it wasn't crazy. And it should have been Bertabiev, but it wasn't. Another hurdle that he has to get through in the way. Then you got Dubois and Jarrell Miller. Jarrell Miller, morbidly obese. I thought UFC heavyweights were bad. No, boxing heavyweights outside the top 5 are just the same. Jarrell Miller gets beaten around by Dubois. They literally just call off. I know he was getting beaten up badly at the end of the 12th. They had 10 seconds left. They could have let him make it to a decision. And they literally just went, oh, an excuse to call this a TKO. So they jumped in and went, yeah, there you go. It was a good stoppage. I'm not angry at it, but still, they did that to try and hype up that fight by the end of it. Good scrap, though. Co-main event and main event. This is where the stinkiness happened. Wilder, Parker, it just weren't good. It's just clinching, holding, separate, miss a bunch of shots, clinch, hold, separate, miss a few more shots. Oh, he landed one left hook. Wow. Let's show that highlight for the rest of the fight in between every single round that goes by. It's just not the same as the UFC. And it tried to be tonight. Main event, Joshua versus Wallin. First of all, it should just be Joshua Wilder. Now you ain't got that fight ever, boxing. You might do it at some point. Maybe Joshua loses his next one. Wilder's still around. Maybe he gets a big KO win and then they can market it as Joshua versus Wilder. Joshua's in the main event. Should have been Joshua Wilder main event, co-main event. This is genuinely what it would have been if the UFC were in charge. It would have been a Joshua Wilder main event with a Bivol versus Bertabiev co-main event. And a sprinkling of other good fights on the card. Maybe still a Dubois versus Jarrell Miller. But they don't do that in boxing. So now we're not going to get Joshua versus Wilder. MMA wins again. I can't believe there are boxing fans that aren't MMA fans. I feel like a lot of MMA fans are still like, all right, what's going on this weekend in boxing? There's no UFC on. Let's have a little glance at what's going on. MMA fans are way more likely to also be boxing fans, but there's a lot of boxing fans that, don't get me wrong, watch MMA as well, But then there's that, I can't believe there's a section of boxing fans that are literally like, nah, MMA's not for me. I'll rather watch boxing this weekend. Like, I cannot believe those people exist. Now, maybe it's just because they did it themselves. They boxed themselves at an amateur level and now they pay attention to the sport. Maybe they used to do it as a kid and now they're an older person watching the sport, still tuning in from when they used to watch the legends back in the day in boxing. But Joshua versus Wallin. Wallin's terrified of him. I know Wallin's good because he actually had a close fight with Fury. But is Fury good? Fury's legacy has taken a bit of a, what are we looking at here? Klitschko, that's a good win. But then we're looking at Wilder. That's turning out not to be a great win after Parker just getting dropped by Wilder. Fury, how bad are you? You know what I mean? I know it's not the same Wilder and it's the Wilder after the damage from the Fury fights and all this type of stuff that people are going to bring up to that. I'm just making a joke. But still, that win ain't aging very well for Tyson Fury. Otto Wallin, terrified of AJ the whole fight. Didn't commit to anything. I didn't see him commit to a single hook or a right hand. Just peppering jabs out there. And then, anytime Joshua threw a shot at him, he just sort of seized up and went, yeah, and flicked out a jab back at him. Taking body shots over and over again. Joshua beats him. Well done. Lands the better shots in the early rounds. Starts picking it up as the rounds go on. I think it was around round 5 he actually got the stoppage. But even the stoppage, the guy took a couple of big shots. Got wobbled, I think, twice in one round. Not dropped. Wobbled twice by big shots. Survived. Got to the corner and just went, yeah, I'll be calling it quits. We've been waiting for the main event for this. Not to mention the half an hour that it takes to get from the co-main that went 12 rounds into the main event. That's annoying as well, because if a UFC fight goes 5 hard rounds, the next one is coming out within about 10 minutes, 5 minutes. Sometimes the adverts will play, you'll come back and they'll be walking out if it's gone to a decision. But no, half an hour wait between Wilder versus Parker, which was stinky, but good for Parker, he got a great win. They come back afterwards. And now Joshua, it's just, there's no payoff. There's no fun in boxing. Where's the big KO? And I know that we just had UFC 296. So that was the UFC's, that was boxing's chance to compete. We can put on cards like the UFC can, and we can make them fun. There was no fun. There's no fun. There was a KO earlier on the card I saw. But still, it's just the main event. I know Edwards versus Covington was the same, but man, Joshua versus Wallin, like, you took a couple of shots and that's it. Call it off on the stall. I know he probably broke his nose and broke his orbital and all that. I just leave another boxing card feeling like fucking, whenever I don't watch boxing, it's sick. That's the annoying thing about boxing, and that's probably what I'm going to end this video on ranting about. Whenever I don't watch, it's so good. But then when I'm there, like, oh, I can't wait for this one, it's just nonsense for 12 rounds. Nonsense for 12 rounds. I'm going to go off about Saudi Arabia as well. I'm going off about Saudi Arabia in this video. They ruin in boxing. Fair enough, they're trying to do what the UFC does. You ain't the UFC, little bro. Get to the back of the queue, yeah? Okay? Put on these different fights on the card. Look, we got a bunch of different fights of all these people that are supposed to win against absolute cans that they should beat. Backfires. I know Parker's not a can, but you know what I'm saying. They're supposed to win all these matchups. Let's just get all these matchups won, and then we can maybe do the fight. Who knows? We might take another year to book Wilder Joshua. So they do that, and then Saudi, this is the problem. They're paying all this money for these fighters, so the fighters are obviously going to go, well, I want an extra 50 million, so I'll do it in Saudi Arabia. The atmosphere is shit. The crowd is empty. You could look up at the top seats in the crowd. Half empty. They didn't even sell out an arena. I know it's in Saudi Arabia, but it's in Saudi Arabia, bro. Stop letting them. Stop letting them. No more Saudi Arabia. No more. The atmosphere is terrible. Absolutely terrible. There was no atmosphere out there. No nothing. The UFC can do a smaller arena with more people. And because of the way boxing is set up, there's so much space around the actual ring. And around the booth and stuff, so, and the commentary area and all the other things. So there's actually less room up close to the fights. UFC can do a smaller arena, less people, but fill it out and have a way better atmosphere than anything boxing can do. It's terrible. It really is terrible. Boxing is awful. I'm done watching it. I'm not. I'll watch it again. I'll watch more. I'll watch every fight. You know what I mean? I'll do it. But I feel like boxing's got this grip on us where it's like, you got to watch it. It's boxing. But we need to go collectively as an audience of combat sports in general. We got to band together here, brothers. We got to just say to ourselves, you know what? No, not just because it's boxing I'm watching. I ain't fucking watching. That's what you got to start doing. Boycott it and watch them panic and then have them all of a sudden, oh, what do you know, guys? We got Joshua Wilder. There's no need for these in the meantime fights, guys. What do you know? Fury Usyk booked this weekend, did someone say? We'll do it tomorrow. All of a sudden, things will start getting fucking booked. Boycott them. It's a shit sport. It tried to compete with the UFC tonight. And it had the perfect opportunity to do so because UFC 296, for a UFC pay-per-view, was shockingly shit. It was surprisingly bad. And they had their chance. And they fucking blew it. They absolutely blew it. Dog shit. Good win from Joshua, though. He won. Good for him. He landed good straight shots. Looked like a good boxer out there. I'm telling you, AJ is not as bad as people have been making him out to be. I think Fury's actually... Maybe Fury and Wilder were the secret bad half of the heavyweight division, whereas AJ and Usyk were sort of the good team. If you know what I'm saying, but... Jesus Christ. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Just wanted to rant about that card because... fucking dog shit. Also, I made a tweet about this. Wilder said he did ayahuasca. I'm telling you, psychedelics, the new combat sports killer. If you're in a combat sport and you do a psychedelic, you've ruined your career. You can't have ego death. You can't have, who really cares what happens, bro? Yo, bro, just chill back, dude. Smoke some of this fucking toad, dude. And who fucking cares if you win or lose, bro? You can't have that mindset, dude. You have to be sober. Alcohol, cocaine, drug. Danger. You know what I mean? You need to have that ego and you need to have the thought process that losing ain't an option. Psychedelics ruin fighters. I've been saying this. See you later. Goodbye.